The moment I saw it, my blood ran cold. My name, signed at the bottom of a $38,000 wedding bill, for my sister's extravagant wedding. I didn't need to look twice to know. My parents had forged it. I held the paper in my hands as my sister laughed in front of her friends. "Oh, don't worry," she said, flicking her hair. "We know who's paying for this anyway." The words weren't meant for me, but they landed like stones. Around me, everyone clinked glasses and smiled, oblivious to the quiet storm inside me. They thought I would cry. They thought I would argue. They thought I would beg. I did none of that. I put the bill down on the table as though it was just another piece of paper. I smiled faintly, not at them, but at the absurdity of their confidence. The room buzzed with their jokes, their assumptions, their sense of superiority. And I watched, silent, as they mistook my calm for weakness. My parents exchanged a glance that was all too familiar. The smug satisfaction of people who believe they can manipulate others, bend reality, and get away with it. They thought I was too small, too soft, too dependent to ever fight back. In that moment, I realized something I had always known. People reveal themselves most clearly when they think you're powerless. All their noise, their pride, their false confidence, it was just that, noise. I left the room quietly, carrying nothing but the weight of what they had done, and the clarity of what I now understood about them. No words, no confrontation, just the silent decision that nothing would ever be the same again. They thought they had won. They had no idea what I was about to do next. Days passed, weeks passed. My parents carried on as if nothing had happened, pretending the $38,000 forgery was a trivial misunderstanding. My sister posted her wedding photos online, flaunting the lavish party I had unknowingly paid for, or at least, they wanted the world to think I had. I didn't confront them. I didn't complain. I focused on myself instead. Quiet mornings, long nights, planning, organizing, building. Every small action was deliberate. Every step I took was invisible to them, but it was real. Meanwhile, cracks began to show. The people who had laughed at my quiet incompetence started to fumble. My father mismanaged a small investment. My mother's usual social influence didn't get her the results she expected. And my sister's new, perfect wedding life came with hidden expenses she hadn't counted. I observed it all, not out of schadenfreude, but because I understood the rhythm of cause and effect. Noise and ego may feel like power, but time has a way of exposing weakness. I kept my success invisible. A few subtle changes, transfers in accounts, strategic connections, quiet discussions, grew into momentum. People started mentioning me, almost by accident. A vendor in town, a colleague from work, someone from an old friendship. "Oh," they'd say, "they've done quite well." My parents would catch snippets of these mentions and shrug. They didn't connect the dots. They didn't see the work behind the calm demeanor, the discipline behind the silence. Then one afternoon, a wedding photographer from my sister's party called me directly, mistakenly thinking I had paid the vendor. I didn't correct them immediately. I let it hang there quietly, letting the seeds of truth settle where they could grow. Every day, I moved further away from their influence. Every day, their noise grew louder, while my own life gained structure, purpose, and quiet power. They were still talking about me, dissecting my supposed weakness. Meanwhile, I was already far ahead, unseen but unshakable, preparing for the moment when reality would quietly, but irrevocably, catch up. They thought the story was over. They didn't know it had only just begun. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon when everything came together. My parents were in the living room, casually discussing their latest plans, when a certified letter arrived. They barely glanced at it, assuming it was another trivial bill. I opened it before they could, calmly, folding it neatly in my hands. Their forged signature, the $38,000 wedding charge, they had left a paper trail they hadn't expected to be discovered. The letter wasn't angry. It wasn't accusatory. It simply stated that the vendor had audited the payments, and the charges had to be reimbursed. And legally, the responsibility fell on the person whose signature was on the document, me. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't demand apologies. I didn't even flinch. I simply placed the letter on the table in front of them. My father's face paled, my mother's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, and my sister froze mid-laugh. Suddenly, the perfect wedding they had enjoyed so much became a visible weight on their shoulders. "I see," my mother whispered. "Yes," I said softly. "It seems everything needs to be settled properly." No yelling, no drama, just quiet authority. They tried to fumble excuses, tried to twist the story into some justification. I let them speak calmly, like a teacher observing mistakes in a classroom. I didn't interrupt. I didn't retaliate. Every word they offered only confirmed their recklessness, their arrogance, their assumption that I would remain silent forever. Then I said the only words I needed. "I've taken care of it. From now on, let's make sure such mistakes don't happen again. I won't be treated as a resource or as someone to manipulate." I turned and left the room. Not because I was angry, but because nothing more needed to be said. Their silence followed me like a shadow. They realized, finally, who I really was. They understood that calm isn't weakness, and that quiet can be preparation for authority they hadn't anticipated. My sister never asked me for money again. My parents never assumed control over me. And the $38,000? Repaid discreetly, without a single word from me. They thought I was weak because I had stayed quiet. They didn't know I was simply busy becoming strong. And in that silence, I held all. Months later, my parents never mentioned the wedding bill again. My sister still brags about her perfect day, but now, every time she smiles, I remember who really paid attention. I didn't need to yell or argue. I didn't need revenge. I let time and calm do the work. They assumed my silence was weakness. It wasn't. It was preparation. Every quiet morning, every careful step, every small victory built something they couldn't see. And when the truth came, it wasn't dramatic. It was simple. Respect was earned, not demanded. And finally, they understood.